Okay, perfect. So as I do at the beginning of my show, I present myself and then I will let you present yourself. So my name is Appel GRATUIT. I'm a wealth manager and I focus on explaining Bitcoin to other wealth managers. So who are you and what do you do? Yeah.
My name is Michael Worley. I'm an accountant. I guess that's the easiest way to explain what I do. In terms of Bitcoin, I'm a Bitcoin enthusiast. It's kind of like a hobby for me.
Okay.
Learning about Bitcoin. I don't do that much. I like buy relatively infrequently, but I do a lot of learning, attending a conference like this.
Okay.
And for work, to expand a little bit, I've done finance director type activity for different businesses within a bank, a large European bank. And I'm moving into fund accounting in about 3-4 weeks, a new role. But it's in the asset management world, so slightly more to do with the Bitcoin side of things, but still a little bit removed.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing in your last job?
Yeah, so previously I was the FD, the finance director for the operations of Deutsche Bank. So in Deutsche Bank, we have a setup where the operations are in a different unit to the businesses that they work for. So we have this one operations unit. There's about 5,000 internal people, another 2,000 contractors, about like 400 odd million of costs, and then some other indirect costs on top of that. And that's in euros, I should say.
Okay.
And so I had the responsibility with a remote team in India to, first of all, look at the overall reporting of those costs and then forecast those costs into the future and make sure that management are well aware of any variances, because there are lots of reasons, as you can imagine, with a very large cost base and so many people across so many countries, lots of reasons why the global plan or the regional plan or the plan versus one point in time might be different to reality, and what we're forecasting might be different to what we planned back in August. And lots of exciting ways to look at these numbers.
Okay, and can you take us back to when you started in finance? So did you know already what you wanted to do? And
No, so I started my career at Rollins & Alliance, and I guess I'd done a degree in mathematics and statistics, so I've always been like a numbers person, I suppose.
Okay.
But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I ended up taking a job that was in my home city of Liverpool, this large insurance company,
Okay.
and decided they could help me become an accountant. So I did that, my professional studies there. I worked in like a global network, which was interesting, actually, my good exposure to different countries at a relatively young age. And then ended up in Deutsche Bank.
Okay. And what are the things that you liked the most and the things that you disliked the most in your past job?
Within finance?
Yeah.
I would say what I like the most is when things feel important, when you're doing things for important people, when you're doing dealing with bigger numbers, that's more motivating. When you've got something which is maybe, we have to tick a box, audit needs something looked at, they don't like the way a certain process is and you have to fix it. It's not really what I'm as passionate about, right? That sort of, smaller thing that has to be done from an admin perspective. So yes, pretty normal really. The bigger the thing, the more exciting it is, the more important it feels. That's what motivates me, and stuff that's more admin, not as much. But I think maybe one thing, if people are listening, if you're starting out and you might feel like your job is a lot like that, and I think that any job worth doing, probably most jobs, start out a bit like that. There's always some, can I swear? There's always some shit that you don't like to do, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, and you, especially when you're junior, that can be quite frustrating. You want to change the world in your first 1 or 2 years. And my experience has been almost no matter what you do, you talk to lawyers, you talk to accountants, you talk to anybody doing anything worthwhile, you can't be trusted to do anything too important that early, not usually. And you need to learn, and you need to be patient that you're getting the less important stuff. But, then you build up your power, your ability to be imaginative, your freedom of what you do, because you have those competencies and skills and experiences and people trust you more. So I think sometimes a little bit of ambition is good, but also patience to get you to the right place where it can be more interesting, because that's definitely what I found. It wasn't as enjoyable the first like 1-2 years, there were good parts, but like more bad parts. And now as you get more experienced, definitely more exciting and well.
So as time went, you started to take more responsibilities.
Yeah.
And at the end, you were managing people, I guess.
Yeah. So I had a team of 7 in India in my last job. So obviously when you first start, you got nobody, and then you get a bit more responsibility. You maybe get one junior person. That's generally how it works.
Okay. And now can you tell us when did you discover Bitcoin, and what was the thing that clicked for you? And yeah.
So, like a lot of people, I just heard about it as a speculative asset in 2017. It was, for me, when I first heard it, there was a guy in the bank I was working for, quite excited about it, telling other people how well he'd done, and, usual FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. I knew at the time there was a little bit of this, probably you just need to sell it to somebody else who'll buy it for a bigger price than you. It's like, okay, I'll buy £300 of Bitcoin, £100 of Litecoin, like a very typical, clueless sort of start to it. And then I just left it alone in my Revolut account for like till 2020. And I was like, oh, it's come back again. And I think that's the big thing about Bitcoin, which hopefully clicks for some people who don't know much about it, is like, when something is a bubble, like a worthless bubble, it comes up once and then it goes away and it never comes back again. And that's like baseball cards or anything like that, right? So that's this one spike and then, it goes away. And then the thing to ask yourself, if you don't know much about Bitcoin, is, well, why does it keep coming back? Why did it go from nothing to $1,000 in like 2012 or whatever, then back down to 200, and then all of these ups and downs? Why does it keep doing that? Why does it keep reaching higher heights? And it's because it's not just a bubble. There is something to it. And that's what I learned through in 2020. And it was like something triggered me. Okay, this is something else. I started listening to podcasts. The main one that got me started was the Preston Pish Investors podcast. And he started like a series for Bitcoin only.
Okay.
And I started listening to that and a few others. And it was really the podcast that I listened to on my commute and other times, and that really sort of got my understanding to the point, and it became like a hobby for me now.
Okay. I think that's why I'm doing also a podcast. It's because we all have our own way of explaining things and seeing things. So for you, it was Preston. So why him? And yeah, what are the things that you liked about his podcast?
Yeah, so I think he actually had Robert Breedlove on, and he's also a favorite podcaster of mine. I listen to a lot of his as well, and his are quite intellectual podcasts, or at least it was for a good while. He's got some excellent series there. And I think another thing that occurred to me from listening to that was the way he explained it was about the history of money, which is sometimes how I try to explain it to people. I don't know if it's always the most successful way, but talk about it in terms of a tool. I found it interesting because I was an accountant in banking. Money was all around me all the time. It's all I think about through the day in one shape or form, in different units. And yet a little bit like a fish sitting in water, I didn't really, it was almost too much around me that I didn't really think about it. I thought I knew what it was, but actually I didn't, right? It was listening to that and the way he explained, well, money is actually a tool. Money is, you like a spade, digging something out of the ground. You can use a spoon to dig something out of the ground, but it's not a great tool. Like there are different tools for money, but that's what it is. And then he explained the different properties about portability, fungibility, divisibility, scarcity, these important aspects of money, and just, did a great job of explaining through that podcast a lot of things that were just kind of, they weren't new to me, but I hadn't heard them that way before.
Yeah.
And then that really got me sort of thinking, oh, like that's what's special about this, and wanted, piqued my interest and got me to learn more. So yeah, it was really that realization, okay, this is meant to be a new invention of money. And I was like, why would we need a new money? Money we've got seems to work pretty well. I work in banking all the time. What's wrong with it? And you learn what's wrong with it. And, that's how we get here.
Okay, cool. What other question I could have? Yeah. If you would to work in Bitcoin, what do you have in mind, and how do you plan to transition, if you plan to transition?
Yeah, so I'll be starting a new role. I think there's a few ways I think about it. So within the company that I'll be joining, they have a digital assets person, and I know, he's a big Bitcoiner. So he knows enough. I don't know exactly how entrenched he is because he looks at other digital assets as well. But, I want to, first of all, see what I can do within the company, to see if there's any contribution I can make, almost directly. Then, potentially transitioning, if I were to, move out of that career path eventually, it would be, I think, in the direction of wealth planning, wealth advisory, because it's something I'm very interested in myself. I'm like always thinking about that. That's in a way how I got into Bitcoin, because I was, buying this assets when I didn't know much about it, but I was buying lots of different assets and just trying things, experimenting. And even just lots of people do that, but I think less people think about the future. Like, okay, I need a certain amount of expenses, my current, day-to-day expenses, my month-to-month expenses. I want something for emergencies. I want some money for like 1 year. I want some money. Like, I would think like that, but most people don't think like that. And I think that's, something that a wealth planner might do. So I feel like I have a natural affinity for that. So it's something I might look to do, but the way in which I would look to do it, I still don't really know. It could be doing a more traditional wealth planning, financial advisory type of role, which I need to study for, do a qualification for, but then bring in the Bitcoin angle on top. Or it could be, doing something more specific in Bitcoin, I guess, like yourself, but, for wealth advisors. So I don't know yet, but luckily I have sort of time to think about it.
Yeah, sure. And so what is your new job, new position now that you're not in
Yeah,
right now?
so it's a fund accounting. So within the bank, they have a division for asset management, and within asset management, there's a division for illiquid funds. So infrastructure funds, they could be buying airports, nuclear power plants, hospital, like infrastructure funds where they buy an asset. It has a long turnover time, and hopefully the way they manage that asset can produce return for shareholders, and then sell it for a higher price in the longer term, and maybe realize some rental income as well.
Okay.
So infrastructure type funds. There's other type of funds as well, private equity funds. They want to do something called collateralized loan obligations, which might be familiar to people as the thing that went wrong during the financial crisis, but they believe they've made them a lot safer now, and that it still could be a good product for these funds. So I will be helping to account for the funds. So the funds will, they've got a set of financials themselves. The financial assets, they have financials still. They still have a set of accounts they need to produce. And those sets of accounts need accountants, to make sure that they are stated correctly. And again, a little bit like before, predicting the future of what those financials are going to be, the management fees, rise and fall in value. Yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay. And can you, I'm interested in the way that you forecast and how do you manage to do it?
Yeah, it's actually not that complicated. So I did a degree in mathematics and statistics. And if you told me back then that when I would be working in the future and I'd be forecasting for a bank, I thought, oh, using all kinds of like strange fancy models.
Yeah.
But the reality isn't like that, actually. The maths is very simple. It's like very percentage based. The model can be a little bit complicated. So if I take my previous role as an example, as I mentioned, 5,000 internal people across different countries. But you just basically split them up into the units you have now. How accurately can you cost what you already have? We've got a pretty good idea of what we pay for a, analyst level person in India. And if we have 5,000 of those and we think we're going to have 4,500 next month, we can do some simple maths as to what that's going to look like and just project that across a month. So there's a lot of, you have these assumptions, you take, relatively simple assumptions in terms of how much cost will rise or fall. You have your projected headcount figures. And so it's just a exercise in multiplying your cost by that. You layer things on top about that. So you've got different cost lines, like your, like I mentioned the main one, cost of staff, your cost of buildings and leases, and they're typically locked in for a while across different jurisdictions. So you can predict those reasonably well. Just, you have a separate team who might manage it, and you talk to them about what might happen in the future. If we need a different building, if it needs renovation, okay, but you build that in. So for every different cost line you can imagine, cost of contractors, you just build in, okay, what do we have now? And then just take a sensible view of, okay, does it make sense to keep that cost the same for 12 months and just flatline it, plus 2%? Is there a reason why that might reduce in the future? So it's just using your brain to understand the business, understand what's happening, and therefore what changes might happen, and how could you, in a reasonable way, predict put a number on that change, and then add it all up and split it across the different types of operations, the different countries that require this reporting.
Okay. It makes me think about a lot of people are doing these things, but in the mining companies. So they basically have to hire a lot of mathematicians and experts. Have you thought about it?
Maybe. I mean, it would definitely be different. I'm sure I could put my hand to it, because if you're used to looking into the future, and the model is never reality, right? A model is only as good as the assumptions you put into it. So clearly it's different if you have a lot more uncertainty. There was a presentation from one of the miners, and he said we must be one of the only industries where we have almost no control over a lot of the things that affect our revenue. We don't know what the hash rate's going to be, the competition. We don't know what the Bitcoin price is going to be for when we sell a Bitcoin. There's these different factors that they have where they don't really know. So they're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. And I don't know, like, you can maybe employ the best mathematicians, and unfortunately, if one of these factors are off by quite a bit, the best they can give you is their best range, but it's going to be quite a wide range when you have some multiple factors that are beyond control, right? Because you just have, if all three factors go like to the worst side, or all three factors go to the best side, it just produces such like a wide range of potential outcomes as to be almost worthless. So but that's the best you can do, and just try to say, okay, we have to plan for the middle, but like also have protection against the worst downside, however you mitigate that. But I guess if your question is, had I thought about entering it? I hadn't, but I guess that's how I'd approach it, is just use your experience in terms of looking at assumptions, how to really make sure that you understand what's going on, and then plug that as best you can into not too sophisticated a model, because it just tends to break more easily. If you keep the math simple, then you're more likely to have something that is robust and understandable, and then you make sure you get the assumptions right.
Okay. Because there is these things about Bitcoin that I didn't get before, and it's the first, the financialization of the hash and the block space. So I really think that we are going to see like a new financial model inside Bitcoin, and not just buying and selling Bitcoin. So it's gonna be interesting. Then it's more for my target clients, or the wealth managers and high net worth individuals. They want to have some products as well to have some yield per se on their Bitcoin. So they use some product like Lombard credit. And are you familiar with this kind of product?
I'd heard about it a while ago, but maybe you could explain for everybody. You certainly better than me, Lombard credits. I think I do remember you're lending against the own assets, but go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, that's exactly that. The idea would be to put your Bitcoins and borrow against it, and just live off the fiat that you get from it. And basically you just have to reinvest some of that money and take the margin. So that's something I think a lot of Bitcoiners are not necessarily familiar with. But can you tell us more about what you like about Bitcoin? And you talked about Preston as your favorite podcaster. Do you have other ones?
Yes, I definitely have other favorites. I mean, I kind of move between them now. It's the space of podcasting has moved on a bit. One of my favorite podcasters, I guess because he was a UK based podcaster, was Peter McCormack with What Bitcoin Did, but he's recently stopped and made it called something called Mr. Obnoxious, which I don't like the title of, but anyway, it's still an interesting podcast, but it's not Bitcoin only anymore. I guess if I'm trying to recommend favorite podcasts and people now, I would still say the Preston one, but I think some of them are still worth going back and listening to, despite all the progress that's been made over the last few years. Really, a lot of the fundamentals are still the same. And I would refer to, even that very first BTC 001 podcast in the Investors podcast that I first listened to, that I was first inspired by. I'm pretty sure it's still relevant. Like most of what's in there is quite relevant. Yeah. And whenever you listen to another favorite show of mine, the What Is Money show by Robert Breedlove, he also on almost every episode, I think, recommends people to go back and listen to his first series with Michael Saylor, and because of that reason. Now that's quite a long series. I don't know if everybody
18.
who's being
18
introduced,
videos.
to Bitcoin necessarily needs to listen to all of that. But maybe the first episode or something. Yeah, my favorites are that here. To summarize, Robert Breedlove, still to some extent the What Bitcoin Did / new version, and the Investors podcast. But yeah, for new people, I would probably still go back and listen to the first ones of those. I think there are probably quite a few good ones out there in the space though that I just haven't listened to.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of the people we can resonate with the most, I think.
Yeah.
Because Robert Breedlove was, I think, a half of hedge fund manager back in the days, and Preston, the Investor podcast. So it's in the name. But yeah, my question is that why did you spend that much time listening to all of that? Did you feel like the need of profound knowledge to get into Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess it was a few things together. So as I mentioned, I was interested in growing my own wealth just because I guess that was a personality trait. And this was happening at the same time as COVID, right? It's 2020, we're all at home, not able to play tennis, another big hobby of mine. So it became something that was like kind of the most interesting thing that was going on. But I would like to think that even if it wasn't COVID, it still would have been something, and everything else that was going on was happening, I still would have been extremely interested because, I've maintained the interest. I'm at a conference today. It can't just be that, right? It's obviously there was quite a bit of number go up type excitement of like, okay, this could help like grow my wealth, something I've always been interested in doing. And then also, then you learn all these other good things about Bitcoin, about what it represents, something that's quite relevant to society today. They'll have this increasing government oversight, increasing like almost dystopian type Orwellian overreach, like things are really moving in that direction. You can feel it. And knowing that learning that Bitcoin is a tool to help you mitigate that, makes it also very interesting. So yeah, I'd say just the things I learned about it as a monetary asset, that it's a bit like gold, but with a lot of potential upside, that it's, got a big potential future to it, that it can grow your wealth, and that it's, has these other almost social aspects to it, and made me, it kind of educated me a bit politically as well. Like, I don't think you necessarily need to be a, more right-wing sort of complete libertarian to believe in Bitcoin, but it definitely makes you think more about that type of thing, about actually, despite all the best intentions of how, larger governments and trying to spend more and trying to solve more problems, the history actually shows that, that can be quite limited in its application, that it doesn't always work as well as you might think or hope. And that actually, reducing the size of the state might be a good idea. So at least to some degree, even if you don't believe in a complete anarcho-capitalist, like no government, even just reducing the size of what we're trying to do and kind of letting, people and free markets and more decentralization handle things might be a good thing if you look at history. I think that was a big thing, like sort of working, people aren't just saying this is like a theory. This is something that people are referring to past events about how things go worse when you have larger governments, too much Orwellian control, and how things have always, you've got examples of things springing up and being creating wealth in places like Hong Kong and places like Singapore,
Switzerland.
Switzerland. When you do things simply, when you just have secure property rights, you allow merchants to trade with each other, and you just make things simple for the market and then let them do their thing, then good things tend to happen. And you've got repeated examples of these two sides. It's like, okay, actually I can appreciate that now, and it's something I didn't know before. So I just learned so many things from the Bitcoin journey, as I mentioned, political, like about the wealth, about the technology of it. This is why it's been so interesting for me.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you talk about the price, but not that much, because if you look at the price chart, basically based on your story, when you really went started your journey into Bitcoin, reading and listening more about Bitcoin, the price was almost like the price of today, if I'm correct.
Well, yes and no. So I invested a bit in like 2020, and then I think it was still like, I don't know, around the $20,000 sort of mark. Like not a huge amount, but I'd seen some upside there, and then like averaging up a bit over time. Because you're right, like if you compare it to maybe like 3 years ago, there's a point where it is maybe slightly higher 3 years ago than it was today, which is unusual, but like possible. So if you're somebody who bought at that exact kind of time period, you might be thinking this is like a sideways thing. But actually, if you do what everybody recommends and just buy a little bit every month, dollar cost average, especially since 2020, you're doing very well. But even since 2021, you're probably doing quite well because it was so low in 2022 for so long. So yeah, I'm definitely ahead in those terms, but I think that there's much more to come, and yeah, so I just try to, yeah, but I still try to learn about it. As I mentioned, I'm not trying to trade it. I'm not trying to predict the price too much exactly when. It's just a way to protect what I already have, and then also, as I said, learn about the future.
But yeah, definitely the price is become way secondary as we go in our Bitcoin journey. So the social aspect is definitely, I would say, I'm not even sure if that's social or even deeper than that. Like there is almost like a spiritual calling to go into Bitcoin, because as we go into this journey, we are so passionate. Like today we are in Amsterdam. So we flew. You from England? Yeah, England. I came from Geneva, Switzerland, and so there's something.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, that's one of the. I've heard it said that the thing that makes Preston Pish very excited about the future is Bitcoiners. He says like Bitcoiners are the things that make him optimistic about Bitcoin. Is you meet all these people, and there's so many, intelligent, still from varied walks of life, but intelligent people who can articulate themselves well. We can get called a cult sometimes, but we're obviously not a cult, right? Like I think people have a pretty good idea of what a cult would be like and the type of people who are in cults, and they're very isolated from the outside world. Whereas actually, if anything, we're isolated with our own like friends groups, right? Like we're not actually with Bitcoiners very often. We're we're by ourselves, and we're exposed to the world very much so. But we see something valuable, as you said, both socially and also monetarily in Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's funny. I saw. I think it's Alan Farrington. Yeah, you mentioned it yesterday.
Yes.
So he just he said that the first wave of Bitcoiners were disagreeable people, and that's funny because I think that's true. Like we tend to question everything, and we never really agree on anything, but we are still behind Bitcoin. So there is definitely something there.
Yeah, I think if to your point about this definitely being something there. So I kind of said at the start that if it was a bubble, it would have gone away by now, but it keeps coming back. And I think the fact that more people enter the space and kind of stay there, right? You have some people who they start with the alternative coins, shit coins, but then they normally, almost always in the cases I've heard of, if they enter the Bitcoin space, they don't come back out again. Nobody comes in and then, oh, actually, Bitcoin's no good. I'm going to become Ethereum. Maybe there's one or two people like that, but like it's extremely rare. Like it's like a black hole. It keeps attracting very intelligent people to keep building on it. And that's one of the reasons to be optimistic about it, is that it keeps growing. There must be something to it if it's not going away price-wise, and you've got this core of intelligent people that keeps growing and growing in numbers. You can see it in the conferences. Like, why would that be the case if there was nothing to this thing?
Exactly. I think that's wonderful. That's a good conclusion. So can you tell us where we can find you, the social, perhaps?
Yes. So I don't know my Twitter handle off by heart, actually. I'm on Twitter. That's the main place where I go and I, repost things. But that's pretty much my main handle. I'll maybe give the Twitter handle to you
Perfect.
separately.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.